Do bad things really happen in Philadelphia? And 30% of agents are dropping their internet lead spend. We're going to cover it all next on Toole Time. I'm Tom Toole. She's Steph Coho. She's Sarah Tymon. Sometimes Sarah Tymon Hogue, depending on when you catch her. We're here on Toole Time. First off, a little different cast this week. Very grateful for Jess and her contribution here. She's going in a different direction. Nothing but the best of luck. And thank you, Jess, if you're watching. Hopefully you are. If you're not, I get that too. But really grateful for everything you did. So we're still rolling. A lot of stuff's going on this week. And the presidential debate was, 2 nights ago? And Donald Trump came out and said, hey, bad things happen in Philadelphia. So, Sarah, you live in Philadelphia. Do you think that's really the case? Let's talk more about this. What do you think?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that Philly has handled everything very well throughout the last few months, the last few years, his presidency. And I don't think that we are in any worse state than any other major city.
I agree. So tell us more about that. Like, I mean, obviously it was like a voter. It was about those voter. I forget the term. Steph, you had mentioned it, but whatever it was called. I think that was the comment. But like, let's talk more about that. You live in the city. Like, I think there's a connotation here. Like, what do we all think about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that voting first of all is going to be different this year. This is different than any other year in history. So there are going to be some hurdles. There's going to be some technical things that happen. I mean, the first year of anything, you're always going to encounter some unknowns. So I think that what he was referring to was that poll watchers were kicked out during the time that they were in there for people to go drop off their votes and to register to be able to vote in various ways. So due to COVID, I mean, we're limiting interactions. We're limiting how many people could be in certain places. So I think that we were being safe and that we were, trying to protect our Philadelphians.
What do you think, Steph?
Well, I know that they do have people that will go in and watch the polls that are registered to do that, but that's during that's on election day. So I think this is kind of like a one-off, right? Like to Sarah's point, we've never been in this experience situation before. So they had limited amount of people in those small areas because the people that were not going to vote on election day that were specifically using this, a lot of them are high risk. So I think that's the reason why. So I don't think that there was any ill intention there for sure.
I think you guys have some great observations because, first of all, that debate, I mean, I don't know what you thought. I watched it for like 10 minutes. It was like two old men yelling at each other, like from a cloud, like shaking their fists, like about like some dispute over like who cut each other's lawn. Like it was probably the worst thing I've ever seen.
What they need to do for the next one is legitimately have a mute button
I
so that
love
one
this.
person talks and the other person is just muted.
Yeah.
That's the only way you're going to get, it was like an argument the whole time. And I think, a lot of what I saw being said by both guys was clickbait. Headlines. Like this was a huge headline, and Philadelphia gets a bad rap in a lot of cases because the sports fans are jerks. I would say that's a big component. But all the same stuff that happens in our city happens in other cities, right? Like I mean, they talk about the robot from Canada. That remember the hitchhiking robot? You guys remember this? And then it came to Philadelphia, and someone like ripped the head off the robot. Like there, I mean, the sports stories like that happens all the time. That happens every other city in the country. It's just a tired narrative. Like next thing you know, they're talking about snowballs at Santa Claus. It's like the same thing. So I think that the debate had very little facts in it. I couldn't even watch it. It was horrible. And then that came out, and I thought it was so relevant for our city. And I mean, you live there, I live outside, you live outside. So it was just, it was like, oh great, another story about how bad Philadelphia is. Like, where do they think we live? Like, I don't get it. So, safe to say, no bad things. Well, I think the normal bad things happen, right?
Yeah. No
additional
things than the normal bad things.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you have to expect a certain level, but
Well, I think that's city living, right? Like,
Absolutely.
there's a reason why people move to the suburbs. I mean, you have kids, you don't want to be around that. I get it. There's an appeal to being in cities. I think, this is a battleground state too. Like this is a really highly contested state for the election, so that might have had something to do with it as well.
Yeah, you'd think he'd like suck up to us a little bit. I don't know.
I don't know. That was it's an interesting comment, to say the least. I think they're already making like T-shirts now about this stuff. So it's so the normal bad things, all that happen in the city. Love it. We're all agree. Very cool. So the next topic, and this to me is pretty interesting. So Chris Smith at Curator. So the Curator is just, if you guys don't know what that is, it's like a website company that does real estate websites, and he's pretty influential in the real estate space. He came out, he did this long survey for his company. It was a 16-question survey, and the big takeaway from it is that right around 30% of agents are going to decrease their spend on internet leads, saying they don't need a middleman and can go directly to consumers. So what do you ladies think about all this? Steph, why don't you go first?
Well, I think that, I don't think it's a coincidence that this is coming out at the same time that Zillow is announcing that they're going to be a brokerage and that they're going to be hiring their own agents. So I think a lot of realtors feel a certain way about that.
For sure. So, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's smart in any situation not to put all of your eggs in one basket and not to put all of your advertising and all of your efforts into one source. So I absolutely think it makes sense to, still contribute some, but also to look at other ways to get your name out there, to get your face out there, and to interact with people.
Well, I think we've talked about this internally, like as a team, right? So what's going on with Zillow right now is like that's like a viable lead source. I think you both kind of brought that up. Like you can make money and sell houses with Zillow. I think the thing a lot of people don't do is they don't look at the lifetime value of the client. So, like, yeah, are you acquiring a client through Zillow? Absolutely. But then what do you do with them afterwards? Like, do you get like their friends and family to work with you? And if you're paying that acquisition cost up front, that's a much different view of it than I'm only going to work the leads that come in and then I'm never going to talk to these people again, which is what a lot of agents do. And to me, that's just not a smart business model. So what are some of the things you see agents doing, like from reading the article? I mean, I've heard a lot of like branding and that sort of stuff. Like, where do you see kind of what do you think they're going to do that those people that are decreasing their spend, what's their next move?
Well, that article also mentioned that there are other advertising sources that are coming out that are pretty affordable, like advertising on Hulu and on TV. I think they said as low as like $500 for an advertisement. So that's pretty interesting, and that's like a new thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and I think what that comes down to is, we watched we talked about this at meetings, and like Gary Vaynerchuk spoke at the Tom Ferry Summit, and he basically said like there's technology is a disruptor, but the way you beat technology is with word of mouth, reputation, and outmaneuvering. So if you can build a brand, and that's what a lot of that advertising is doing, Steph, is if you can build a brand, and it can it could be your own brand, it could be a brand within a brand, a lot of different things. That's how you're going to beat these companies, because they're going to they're a $1 billion company. They're going to do whatever they want to do, and it's what you can do on the local level and how do you outmaneuver them, but also like kind of build your brand and lead into word of mouth as well, because I think if you can be seen like everywhere, then they're going to be like, who the hell's Zillow? Like, that's just a place to go. But if you can get them to come to us or come to you, that to me is where, there's a way to do that. And I think a lot of agents are starting to pivot. There's also a lot of people that were way too reliant on Zillow in the first place. I mean, is that something we've seen a lot of? Or, let's talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I think also regardless of the lead source and how you get them, it also comes down to once you meet them, what type of follow-up you do and what type of questions you ask. And if you do a thorough job, a good job with them, and they enjoy working with you and they feel like you really help them through the process, and then you ask, do you have friends? Do you have family? And you keep in touch with them down the line to see if they're still happy in the place that they ended up purchasing. I think regardless of the source of how you get them, it ultimately comes down to you as an agent being a human and staying in touch and doing a good job.
Yep, absolutely. It comes down to the relationship, for sure.
Well, that's worked pretty well for both of you guys, right? I mean, like video, like connecting that way. I mean, so I think that's they're going to be there. They're a publicly traded company. Like, I'm not here. Sometimes you can see, like, as a business owner, and we're all business owners here, even though we work on a team. Like, it's all about your individual business. What can you do to take that and leverage it? I think that's the name of the game right now. So, love what you guys are saying. Sounds like we're kind of all in agreement here too. Very cool, especially on the first rebooted episode. So, last thing we got is the motivational quote. So, I'm going to make Sarah or Steph come up with this next week, but since it's the first one, we'll do this. So. This comes from Warren Buffett, CEO of Berkshire Hathaway. You guys don't know who Warren Buffett is. I don't know where you've been living the past 20 years. But to me, this is really interesting based on what we're talking about, is that it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. If you think about that, you'll do things differently. Sarah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's true. You know? Like, yeah, if you can work really, really hard and it takes a long time to get people to trust you, and it only takes a second to make them not trust you anymore and not want to work with you anymore. So I think that remembering that and, you know, showing your best self and putting your best foot forward, you know, certainly everybody has bad days or moments when, you know, it's tough, but don't ruin 20 years of hard work over just something stupid.
I think we see this all the time in the press where somebody will have like a career, a 20-year acting career or something like that, and then they'll say one thing that is not acceptable, you know, and then you see it all over the news, and then they lose like a lot of opportunities that they had, you know, and things like that. So I just think it comes down to integrity and making sure that, you know, you're being true to yourself in every situation. I think you'll be fine.
That's a really interesting take, because I think there's a lot of people out there that are in the public eye that are like manipulators, right? Like they make it look like they're being kind, but they're really just doing stuff to further their own reputation or further their career. And like you say, I'm assuming you're talking about like Hollywood actors, like an example.
Yeah, exactly.
They're like, I mean, some of the stuff that's happened is insane. I saw it of 5 people immediately when you said that, and it's just like, wow, this looked like a wholesome person until this happened, and then it was a total disaster. So. You know, and it's tough to build, right? And so, you know, it's comes down to really like doing the right thing, in my view. Like you got it, like even if you think like you can take a shortcut somewhere or do something, like that one bad judgment can change everything. So I think that's a really good observation on both your parts. And obviously Warren Buffett knows what's up. He's a billionaire. Like he understands. He's built big companies. So it's a really good way to look at things. So
well, and I like basically like what you said there, and like if you're coming from a good place and you're trying to like do the best by your client, and you stay true to that, then you won't find yourself in a position of, you know, letting everything fall apart.
Right.
well, and like I've said things to people, and I'm like, man, I shouldn't have said that, or I shouldn't have agreed to that, and that was a mistake on my end. And you know what? When you honor it, even though you know you screwed up, which has happened to me many times, it's going to happen again. Like it's not, and you're in the moment, and I mean, I don't know if you ladies have felt that, but you say something, you're like, man, I can't believe that just came out of my mouth, or I agreed to do that. Whether it's like, I'm going to show up at all the showings for your listing, like I mean, or I'm going to be there for the entire home inspection, or I'm going to, you know, I'm going to personally view all the COVID-19 forms and make sure they come in instead of have our staff do it. And, you know, so like those sort of things, like once you commit, you got to do it. I mean, I think that, and you said integrity, and to me that's so right. And I know I've been there, and I'm just like, man, I can't go back on this. It came out of my mouth. I agreed to it. I don't care if it's not in writing. Just can't do it. Otherwise, to your point, like, might as well just flush it all down. So, good stuff. Awesome show. Thank you. We're going to be, you know, sometimes it'll be all 3 of us. Might just be the 2 of them. We're going to be mixing this up, but excited for what's to come here. And thanks for being on, ladies. Really appreciate it.
Yep, thanks.
Catch you guys next week.